2 days ago, the PS5 Pro was officially announced, and I've already made a video, top right, you can check it out if you haven't seen it already, where I talked about whether or not it's worth it to sort of upgrade to this new console just for GTA 6. It seems like it's gonna cost a lot of money to do that. But even if money was no concern, the big question I think a lot of people have regarding the PS5 Pro is, will it even run GTA 6 at a 60 FPS frame rate? And the answer to that is actually probably no. So that is what we're going to be taking a deep dive look at in today's video. Will the PS5 Pro be able to run GTA 6 at 60 FPS? So here we actually have, this is an article from IGN, which I'll leave a link in the description. It's actually a pretty awesome article if you're into like the hardware sort of stuff. They asked a tech specialist from Digital Foundry, who's like one of the biggest hardware people in the gaming world. And I mean, look, you can just read up here at the top, will PS5 Pro run GTA 6 at 4K 60? Probably not, says the experts. Now, from the analysis of the trailer 1, apparently it was running on either the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series X. I would imagine it's maybe the PlayStation 5 since Sony and Rockstar have a partnership. But that original trailer 1 was on one of those systems. And as we've seen, that trailer had an impressive level of detail. I mean, the physics stuff, the amount of NPCs, the foliage, the lighting, everything looked immaculate almost. And that was on that original PlayStation or that original Xbox Series X. But as we continue in this article, they talk about frame rates here. That is kind of an entirely different thing compared to like the graphics stuff of the game. And when they asked this tech expert if it could realistically run at 60 FPS on this new console, on the PS5 Pro, the guy basically said no. GTA games have always run complex simulations that push the CPU hard, which is why every single GTA game has initially launched on their target platforms at 30 FPS or even lower, because I know some of you guys remember GTA 5 being sub 30 FPS. I think was it on the PS4? It might have even been on the PS3, but yeah, it was not great early on in the life cycle of the game on console. Continuing though, the PS5 Pro uses the same CPU as the regular base PS5. And they say it would be extremely challenging to hit 60 FPS if the base PS5 version is only targeting 30 FPS. This isn't a GPU problem, it's a CPU problem. And of course, the PS5 Pro, one of the only big upgrades was an upgraded GPU. And if you're wondering why this is the case, there's a multitude of simulation work running concurrently and constantly in GTA to keep its open world ticking. Every street, at the very minimum, is a stage for complex traffic and pedestrian simulation. You have all their routines, the physics calculations, which we did see, like there's like the hair, the freaking hair alone is gonna go crazy in this game with the physics. And of course, all that sort of stuff brings the game and the sidewalks and stuff, like they say, to life. GTA 6 will very likely feature one of the most realistic depictions of city life we've ever seen in a video game. And because of that, it will be taxing on the CPU as it renders all of those NPC behaviors, which leaves little bandwidth to boost the frame rates. And I quickly just want to run through the rest of this article before we dive deeper into all of this. But obviously they've been pretty negative on this PS5 Pro so far in this little article. But the PS5 Pro, it does have other enhancements, and GTA 6 will undoubtedly look better on this new console. It may not have more FPS, but it will look better. There's ray tracing upgrades, which definitely will help. There is the AI upscaling, which, probably will help. I think the original point, which we talked about in the last video, is it's not worth the, $800 upgrade almost to have these kind of minor graphical improvements. But yeah, the 4K 60 FPS, that's not going to be a thing for GTA 6 on this console. One thing they said is that this PS5 Pro basically will make it a little bit more stable. Like if GTA 6 can't get a stable 30 FPS on the regular, like the base PS5, and they reference back in the day, so I guess it was on the PS3 and Xbox 360 where GTA 5 and I guess GTA 4 couldn't get a locked 30 FPS. You'd always drop into the 20s, sometimes even in the teens. Well, then the PS5 Pro's increased clock speeds on the CPU will help, and it'll make it more stable. So at the very least, you'll get a completely locked frame rate on the PS5 Pro, but that's basically about it as far as the difference in frame rates go between the consoles. Now, the one thing that can change all of this discussion is if Rockstar is targeting 60 FPS on that base PS5. There is no evidence to suggest this. I believe the original trailer 1, when people decoded it and looked in depth, it was only running at 30 FPS. I think it was 1440p 30 FPS. But if they are trying to get 60 FPS on that base PS5, then you will get 60 FPS on the PS5 Pro. It's just probably unlikely. And I want to bring up the performance modes that you see in certain games. I think GTA 5 actually has a performance mode. They have the fidelity one, which is, I guess, 4K, whatever. And then they have the performance mode, which makes it have a better frame rate. I've seen people ask, well, why can't they just do that for GTA 6? And it's actually a pretty simple answer, because I was also on that same question. I was like, well, why can't they just have, a 4K mode and then also like a 2K 60 FPS mode or a 1080p 60 FPS mode? And the reason that that's not that likely is because of how good Rockstar actually are when they make games. Rockstar push boundaries when it comes to the games they make. From what we've seen just in trailer 1, it looks like GTA 6 is actually going to be pushing the boundaries of gaming. It looks like it's going to be pushing these consoles already to their limits as far as the hardware is concerned. So there's really no extra room to get that 60 FPS, that performance mode option. And it also doesn't bode, too well that GTA 5, a game that was made for the PS3, couldn't by default run at 60 FPS on the PS5. Like, there had to be a performance mode for a 2 generation earlier made game. That just shows you how intensive these sort of open world cities actually are, at least when it comes to the CPU. So yeah, I think that's just a pretty simple explanation. Most other games, they don't push the limits of these hardwares or of these consoles. So they do have room to make a performance mode and a normal fidelity mode. But GTA 6 and Rockstar, they don't. That's why RDR2 never got a 60 FPS mode. It's because it probably wasn't that possible, at least back on the PS4, because they were pushing the hardware to its limits. And again, like was mentioned in the article, if there's no 60 FPS mode on the base PS5, there's not going to be one on the Pro. You can't just magically double frame rate through a better GPU when the CPU is still the same. Now, look, here's a little conspiracy theory. I think it makes sense from a business perspective for Rockstar and Take-Two. This is what they did with GTA 5. They're going to release this game on the consoles at 30 FPS. Maybe 4K 30 FPS, but it'll be 30 FPS. And then they'll get you to triple dip, maybe quadruple dip. They'll release it, 6 months to a year later on the PC and have all the PC people buy it and play it. And then whenever the PS6 and whatever the Xbox is comes out, that's when they'll have, the enhanced edition of GTA 6 that will run at 60 FPS on console. And then you'll have to buy the game for a third time potentially. So I know that is kind of like a conspiracy theory, but it just makes sense because it's what Rockstar has already done with GTA 5. If they do release this game as a 60 FPS title on, the base PS5, then a lot of people might not be willing to upgrade whenever the PS6 version comes out, because they're like, oh, I already played it, 4K 60 FPS, so I don't really need to upgrade. So I think they are actually saving that 60 FPS for, PC, and then of course the next generation console. And I mentioned Red Dead Redemption 2. I just want to talk briefly about it. There are going to be some people that say 30 FPS, it's not that bad. RDR2 was at 30 FPS. People seem to like it. They didn't seem to mind. But I will just say RDR2 was released at a time when most other games were also 30 FPS. Nowadays, there are a lot of single player games that are 60 FPS. And as someone who has played at 60 FPS and even higher, like I have a 240 hertz monitor, so I play a lot of games at 240 hertz, going down after you've played at these higher frame rates, it will drive you crazy. Like 4K or just a 30 FPS game isn't bad if that's all you're used to. But once you go to 60 FPS and even higher, and then you drop back down to 30, it is very noticeable. So if you are someone who's maybe worried about this, I would suggest start playing games at 30 FPS for the next year so you get accustomed to that again. Because if you are playing these other console games at 60 FPS, then you are going to notice kind of a difference when you drop back down to 30. And then the last thing I'll actually say is November 7th is when this PS5 Pro does actually release. So I'm sure we'll get more detailed benchmarks when that happens compared to the normal PS5. Again, like I mentioned in the last video, this is all just some speculation at the moment. I think it's pretty logical speculation, but until we have hard numbers on this sort of stuff, it is kind of hard to say specifically what is going to happen. Obviously, there won't be benchmarks on GTA 6 on November 7th, but you can sort of get an idea, maybe, you know, like a Cyberpunk 2077. That's going to be a close enough game to GTA 6 that you can see, look at the benchmarks from that and see how it compares from the base PS5 to the Pro PS5 to see how big of a difference it actually will be. But at the moment, it does sound like, and a lot of experts are saying, this game, GTA 6, will not run at 60 FPS on the PS5 Pro. So, does that matter to you guys? Are you someone who doesn't care for FPS and wants more, you know, graphics sort of stuff like visual fidelity? Or do you actually want the better FPS and you don't really care too much about the graphics as much? It will for sure be an interesting thing to see over the next couple of months. Maybe we have to wait until next year for Rockstar to give us some more information on this and if they actually are going to be running this game at 60 FPS or not. But of course, as always, I will keep you guys up to date on all of the GTA 6 news. So hit that subscribe button if you are new around here. Thank you guys for watching. Please drop the video a like if you did enjoy. Subscribe for more GTA 6 content. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.